You know that feeling when you've spent hundreds of dollars at the nursery, you've dug holes in the heat of summer, you've watered and waited and hoped, and then 3 years later, the tree is dead. Or worse, it's alive, but it gives you maybe 2 weeks of fruit and then it's done. Just done. And you're back at the grocery store buying the same bland, waxy apples that were probably picked 6 months ago. And gassed to look fresh. I've been there. I spent years chasing the wrong plants. Babying things that had no business being in my climate. Losing trees to late frosts I didn't prepare for. Planting things that needed a full-time caretaker just to survive summer. And every single time I'd think, there has to be a better way to do this. And there is. What if I told you that the trees I'm about to share with you don't just survive, they thrive for decades, some of them for centuries. We're talking about fruit trees that get planted once and then they just keep giving. Year after year, generation after generation, trees that have fed families through droughts, through hard winters, through times when the grocery store wasn't an option. Trees that are tough enough to handle most of the United States and productive enough to actually make a difference in what your family eats. Today I'm counting down 11 of the most resilient, most productive, most legendary fruit trees you can plant for long-term food security. And I'm going to save the absolute best for last, because when you hear what number 1 can do, you're going to want to go outside and plant it tomorrow. Before we get into it, drop a comment right now and tell me, what state are you gardening in? And what's the one fruit tree you've always wanted to grow but haven't tried yet? I'm genuinely curious, because the answers always surprise me and they help me make better videos for you. All right, let's count it down. Number 11, pawpaw. Most people in the United States have never tasted a pawpaw, and that is one of the great tragedies of American gardening. This is the largest edible fruit native to North America. It tastes like someone crossed a banana with a mango and a vanilla custard, and somehow the result grows wild from Kansas to the Atlantic coast. The pawpaw tree, Asimina triloba, is as American as it gets. George Washington reportedly loved them. Lewis and Clark ate them on their expedition. And for a long time, this fruit was a staple for indigenous peoples across the eastern half of this country. So why don't we all grow them? Mostly because commercial agriculture never figured out how to ship them. Pawpaws ripen fast and bruise easily. That's actually good news for backyard growers, because it means this is one fruit you genuinely cannot buy fresh unless you grow it yourself. In terms of longevity, a healthy pawpaw grove can produce for 50 years or more. They spread through root suckers, so over time a single planting becomes a family of trees. They're naturally pest resistant. Even deer tend to leave them alone, which for a lot of you watching from the South and Midwest, you know what a blessing that is. They prefer USDA zones 5 through 9. They like partial shade when young and good moisture. And you will need at least 2 different varieties for cross-pollination. Don't skip that step. I've seen people plant a single tree and wait 5 years for fruit that never comes. Get 2. Plant them close. You'll thank yourself. Number 10, persimmon. If you want a tree that asks almost nothing of you and still delivers year after year, plant a persimmon. The American persimmon, Diospyros virginiana, is one of the toughest fruit trees on this continent. It laughs at drought, it handles clay soil. It can push through zone 4 winters and still come back loaded with fruit. The fruit ripens in fall after the first frost, which actually sweetens it up and removes the mouth-puckering astringency that surprises people who eat them too early. Wait for them to get soft, almost wrinkled, and then you're in for something genuinely delicious. Rich, sweet, almost like a date crossed with an apricot. American persimmons live a long time. A well-established tree can produce for 100 years or more. They're that old farmstead tree you find standing at the edge of fields, where the farmhouse has long since disappeared. They outlast everything around them. Wildlife loves them too. If you care about your land, about birds and deer and native ecosystems, persimmons are a keystone planting. And for homesteaders focused on self-sufficiency, the fruit dries beautifully, makes excellent preserves, and even ferments into something interesting if that's your thing. Zones 4 through 9, low maintenance once established. If only plant one tree from this entire list, the persimmon is a serious contender. Number 9, mulberry. Here's a tree that old-timers knew and new gardeners are rediscovering, and for good reason. The mulberry, especially the red mulberry native to North America, Morus rubra, or the incredibly productive white mulberry, is one of the fastest fruiting trees you can plant. We're talking fruit in as little as 2 to 3 years, and once it gets going, it doesn't stop. A mature mulberry tree in a good summer can drop pounds of fruit every single day. I mean that literally. You will be picking mulberries. You will be making jam. You will be feeding your chickens, and the birds will still get half of them. The abundance is almost overwhelming. They're also remarkably long-lived. Some mulberry trees in the United States are well over 200 years old and still producing. They handle heat, they handle a variety of soils, they're drought-tolerant once established, and they produce with minimal care. The one thing I'll warn you about, don't plant them near sidewalks, driveways, or anything you don't want stained purple. The falling fruit is wonderful, but it does leave its mark. Plant them in a food forest, along a fence line, near a chicken run, or somewhere you can harvest freely without worrying about the mess. Zones 4 through 8 for red mulberry. White mulberry stretches even further. This is a plant for serious food producers. Number 8. Elderberry. Now we're getting into territory that's about more than just food. The elderberry, Sambucus canadensis in North America, is one of the most medicinally valuable plants you can put on your homestead. This is the tree that herbalists, homesteaders, and natural health families have been growing for generations, and its reputation is well earned. The berries are loaded with antioxidants. Elderberry syrup has been used for immune support long before it showed up in every health food store. The flowers are edible too. Elderflower cordial, elderflower fritters. This plant gives from spring through fall. On the practical side, elderberry grows fast, often reaching 10 to 12 feet in just a couple of years. It tolerates wet areas that would kill most fruit trees. It's a pollinator magnet when it blooms, and the dense clusters of dark purple berries in late summer are stunning. You do want to cook or process the berries before eating them in quantity. Raw, unripe berries can cause stomach upset. But cooked elderberries are safe, nutritious, and genuinely delicious. Syrup, jam, wine, tinctures, the uses are almost endless. Zones 3 through 9. Grows across most of the country, spreads readily, so give it some room or manage the suckers. This is one plant that earns its space 10 times over. Number 7. Serviceberry. This one catches people off guard every time. Serviceberry, a Melanchier species, is one of the most underappreciated edible trees in North America. And I think that's partly because it looks so ornamental that people don't realize they're standing under a food source. In spring, serviceberries explode with white blossoms earlier than almost anything else in the landscape. They are breathtaking. Then, by early to mid-summer, depending on your zone, they produce small berries that taste somewhere between a blueberry and an almond. Mildly sweet, slightly nutty, wonderful fresh or in pies and preserves. They're native across a huge range of the United States, cold hardy down to zone 2 in some species, deer resistant, adaptable to clay, loam, and even dry, rocky soils. They attract pollinators in spring and birds in summer, and they turn brilliant orange and red in the fall. For homesteaders and people trying to build a permaculture food forest, serviceberry fits beautifully as a mid-story layer. It works alongside taller trees and doesn't fight for light the same way. Established plants live for decades. Some of the larger serviceberry trees I've seen were clearly 100 years old and still fruiting heavily. If you're in the northern half of the country and you're not growing serviceberry, you are genuinely missing out. Number 6, black walnut. Now here's a tree that splits gardeners right down the middle. Some people love it. Some people, especially those who've lost tomatoes to its root compounds, have a very different opinion. But hear me out, because the black walnut deserves a spot on this list and on your land. The black walnut, Juglans nigra, is one of the most productive and long-lived nut trees in North America. A well-placed black walnut tree will produce nuts for over 200 years. I'm not exaggerating. There are documented black walnut trees in the eastern United States that have been producing since before the American Revolution. The nuts are rich, intensely flavored, higher in protein than English walnuts, and prized by bakers, candy makers, and anyone who's eaten real black walnut ice cream and never forgotten it. They're harder to crack than English walnuts, but the flavor is completely different. Darker, earthier, more complex. The catch is juglone, a compound in the roots and leaves that inhibits certain plants. Tomatoes, peppers, some fruit trees. They don't love being planted near black walnuts, but plenty of things do fine near them. Black raspberries, for example, actually grow happily alongside. Plant them in a spot where they have room to grow large, where their canopy won't create problems, and where their nut drop is welcome. They don't need much care. They're drought tolerant once established. Wildlife absolutely depends on them. Zones 4 through 9. This is a legacy planting, not for instant gratification, but for the family that comes after you. Okay? We are at the halfway point, and I want to pause here for a second, because the next 5 trees are where things get really interesting. These are the trees that serious homesteaders, long-term thinkers, and experienced growers consistently put at the top of their list. And number 1 in particular. I've seen people completely rethink their entire property after learning what it can do, so stay with me. You don't want to miss this. Number 5, chestnut. The American chestnut was once the king of the eastern forest. Before a fungal blight wiped it out in the early 1900 seconds, there were estimated to be 4 billion American chestnut trees in this country. They fed people. They fed wildlife. The timber built barns and fences. It was one of the most important trees on the continent. Today, thanks to decades of breeding work, there are blight-resistant chestnut varieties available again. And the Chinese chestnut, Castanea mollissima, has stepped into the gap as a productive, disease-resistant alternative that grows across much of the United States. A mature chestnut tree in a good year can drop hundreds of pounds of nuts. And unlike most nuts, chestnuts are not high in fat. They're high in complex carbohydrates, almost like a grain that grows on a tree. Roasted chestnuts, chestnut flour, chestnut stuffing. This was a primary food source for centuries for good reason. They grow well in zones 4 through 8. They need at least 2 trees for cross-pollination, just like pawpaws. Give them space, good drainage, and slightly acidic soil, and they will reward you with food for 100 years or more. For the homesteader thinking seriously about long-term food security, chestnuts are one of the most important trees you can plant. Number 4, Cornelian cherry. I know, most people in the United States have never heard of this one. And that's exactly why it's on this list. The Cornelian cherry, Cornus mas, is not actually a cherry. It's a species of dogwood. And it produces small, bright red fruits in late summer that taste like a tart cranberry crossed with a cherry, packed with more vitamin C than almost any other common fruit. In Eastern Europe and parts of the Middle East, this tree has been cultivated for thousands of years. It's been found at archaeological sites across the ancient world. And in American gardens, it's quietly gaining a devoted following among permaculture growers and people who want something unusual and incredibly productive. What makes it special for North American growers? First, it blooms in late winter or very early spring, sometimes even before forsythia. That makes it one of the earliest nectar sources for pollinators, when almost nothing else is blooming. Second, it's incredibly cold hardy. Zones 4 through 8 handles full sun or partial shade. Tolerates urban conditions, clay soil, and drought once established. Third, and this is the part that keeps me coming back to it, a Cornelian cherry tree lives for over 200 years. There are documented specimens in Europe that have been producing fruit for centuries. This is not an exaggeration. This is a tree you plant knowing that your great-great-grandchildren will still be picking fruit from it. Make jam, make fruit leather, make a tart syrup that is genuinely unlike anything you've ever tasted from a store. And when your neighbors ask what those brilliant red fruits are in late summer, you'll get to be the most interesting person on the block. Number 3, fig. All right, here's where we talk about one of the most beloved, most ancient, most forgiving fruit trees in the world, and one that is dramatically underplanted in the United States, considering how well it performs. The fig, Ficus carica, has been cultivated by humans for at least 11,000 years. 11,000. It appears in the Bible, in ancient Greek texts, in Roman agricultural records. It is one of the oldest cultivated food plants on Earth. And here's the thing about figs that a lot of American gardeners don't realize. They are far more cold hardy than their reputation suggests. Yes, certain varieties need warmth, but there are cold hardy figs that survive Zone 6 winters with minimal protection, and Zone 5 with some mulching and a little care. Chicago hardy fig, the clue is in the name. Brown turkey, Celeste. These are not tropical prima donnas. These are tough, practical trees. A mature fig tree can produce 2 crops per year in warm climates. It needs no pollinator. It handles drought remarkably well. It grows in containers if you're in a colder zone and want to bring it in for winter. And once established in the ground in a suitable climate, a fig tree will produce for 200 years. There are fig trees in California and the Southeast that are clearly over 100 years old, enormous, sprawling, gnarled trees still loaded with fruit every summer. Fresh figs are one of those foods that people who've only had dried figs cannot even imagine. They're completely different. Sweet, jammy, complex in flavor, and they dry, preserve, and ferment beautifully. Zones 6 through 11 in the ground. Container growing expands that significantly. If you're in the South, the Southwest, or California and you don't have a fig tree, I genuinely don't know what you're waiting for. Number 2, quince. Before apples became the dominant fruit of European and American culture, quince was king. And in gardens that prioritize longevity, productivity, and beauty, it still is. The quince, Sidonia oblonga, is one of the most ancient cultivated fruit trees on Earth. It's believed to be the original golden apple of Greek mythology. It was sacred to Aphrodite. And it was the most common orchard tree in colonial American gardens before apples pushed it aside. Now, I need to be honest with you. You don't eat quince raw off the tree. The fruit is hard and astringent straight from the branch, but cook it and something almost magical happens. The flesh turns from pale yellow to deep rose red. The flavor develops into something rich, honeyed, and floral, unlike anything else in the fruit world. Quince paste, called membrillo in Spanish tradition, is one of the great preserved foods of the world. Quince jelly, quince jam, quince added to apple pie transforms it entirely. A quince tree in full bloom in spring is genuinely one of the most beautiful sights in a kitchen garden. Large, pale pink blossoms. And the golden fruit hanging heavy in autumn is equally striking. Here's what makes it extraordinary for this list. Quince is incredibly disease-resistant compared to apples and pears. It handles clay soil well. It doesn't need heavy spraying programs. It's drought-tolerant once established. And a well-cared-for quince tree can live for well over 100 years, producing fruit reliably the entire time. Zones 5 through 9, low maintenance, high reward. This is a tree that serious kitchen gardeners and homesteaders need to rediscover. And now, number one. Number one, olive. I know some of you just raised an eyebrow. The olive in the United States? Yes. And let me tell you exactly why this is number one on this list. Because once you understand what the olive tree actually is, you will never think about it the same way. The olive tree, Olea europaea, is potentially the longest-lived fruit-producing tree on Earth. There are olive trees in the Mediterranean that have been producing fruit continuously for over 2,000 years. 2,000 years. These are trees that were alive during the time of the Roman Empire, during the life of Christ, during the height of Greek civilization. And they are still standing, still alive, still producing olives. In Greece, in Spain, in Italy, there are groves of olive trees where individual specimens are reliably documented at over 1,000 years old. Some estimates for the oldest known olive trees push 1,500 to 2,000 years. No other cultivated fruit tree on the planet can say that. Now, can you grow olives in the United States? More than most people think. California is obvious. The entire Central Valley and much of coastal California is prime olive country, and olives have been grown there since the Spanish missions. But olive territory extends further than that. Arizona and New Mexico, Texas, the Gulf Coast, Florida, parts of the Pacific Northwest in mild maritime zones, and with cold hardy varieties, Arbequina, Arbosana, and especially newer cold-tolerant selections. People in Zone 7B and even some Zone 7A locations are successfully growing olives. They require very little water once established. They don't need rich soil. Actually prefer it lean and well-drained. They don't need spraying programs. They don't need annual pruning beyond light shaping. They are one of the most genuinely low-maintenance food trees that exists, and they give back for not decades, but centuries. The oil, the cured fruit, the sheer beauty of a silver-leafed olive tree catching afternoon light, and the knowledge that you are planting something that will still be standing, still producing, when everyone alive today is long gone. If your climate supports it, there is no more powerful legacy planting on this list. 11 trees, 11 living legacies you can put in the ground this season and give to the generations that come after you. Some of them are native to this continent. Some have fed human civilization for thousands of years. All of them are tougher, more productive, and more rewarding than the short-lived, high-maintenance ornamentals that fill most of our yards. Gardening, at its heart, is an act of hope. You put something in the ground not just for yourself, but because you believe in tomorrow. The trees on this list are the ones that make that belief tangible. Something that takes root, grows strong, and keeps feeding people long after you're gone. So let me ask you, which of these trees are you adding to your land this year? Drop it in the comments and tell me your zone while you're at it. I read every single one, and there's nothing I enjoy more than seeing what fellow growers are planting across this country. If this video gave you something useful, share it with someone who's serious about growing their own food. And if you want to keep going deeper into perennial food systems, long-lived edibles, and building real food security on your land, there's a lot more where this came from. Now go plant something that lasts.